Pay attention for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to show you about the Los Angeles Lakers and Michael Porter Jr., people around the league are starting to whisper about it, and nobody in your feed has connected the dots yet. I'm not here to tell you it's signed, sealed, and posted. I'm here to show you something more dangerous than that, why this path genuinely exists, why it makes sense right now at this exact point in the offseason, and why, once you understand the fit, you won't be able to unsee it. Stick with me until the end, because in the final point I'm going to show you the piece that locks, or unlocks, everything, and it's the piece almost nobody is looking at. Let's start with the elephant in the room. LeBron James is no longer a Laker. Let that sink in for a second. The longest and most dominant era in the franchise's recent history ended this 2026 offseason. The King informed the team he'd be continuing his career elsewhere. Jeannie Buss put out that statement thanking him for his years of service, and overnight the Lakers became a different team. It's not the LeBron team with Luka as a sidekick anymore. Now it's officially Luka Doncic's team, and when a team changes the owner of its locker room, it changes its need. Hold on to that sentence, because it's the key to everything that comes next. Because look at what the Lakers did in the first days of the market. They sat still while the entire league went spending, held on to the money they had, and then, in a window of about 30 minutes on a Wednesday morning, remade the entire roster. They brought in Walker Kessler to be that roll and protect center Luka literally asked the front office to find. A 7-footer who protects the rim, finishes lobs, and doesn't need the ball in his hands to matter. They agreed with Quentin Grimes, who happens to be a former Luka teammate in Dallas and has trained with JJ Redick in past off seasons. They signed Colin Sexton for scoring off the bench. They grabbed Sandro Mamukelashvili to space the floor in the front court. On paper, they built a coherent team for the first time in a long time, and this is where the story gets interesting, because when you look at this brand new roster, with Kessler protecting the rim and Sexton bombing off the bench, there's one hole that screams. A hole the very people who cover the franchise from the inside admit. They're missing a wing, they're missing a big perimeter guy who plays both ends, who opens the floor so Luka can breathe. The Lakers built an entire team around the creation of Doncic and Reeves, and didn't put a real killer next to them on the wing. They didn't, because the money ran out. Their spending power was essentially exhausted that Wednesday morning. And here's where we reach the first big point of the night. Hold on to this, because it changes everything. The Lakers can't sign anyone big anymore. They can only trade. And that's exactly why Michael Porter Jr., his name is starting to make a strange noise in the back rooms. But hold on, don't run ahead. Before I show you how the trade would happen, I need you to understand who MPJ is today. Because if you stopped following him since his Denver days, you've got an outdated player in your head. Michael Porter Jr. is no longer that third option for Jokic, who just sat in the corner waiting for the pass. He was traded to the Brooklyn Nets in July 2025. And Brooklyn even got an unprotected 2032 first-round pick as part of the deal. And in Brooklyn, on a bad team, on a team that lost more than 60 games, MPJ had the best season of his career, around 24 points per game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. A guy who's 6'10", shooting 40% from 3 over his entire career. And here's a stat that'll give you chills. At that shooting volume, over the course of his career, only 2 guys in the entire league have been more accurate. Stephen Curry and Zach LaVine. Only those 2. You get the caliber of shooter we're talking about? Now close your eyes and imagine that guy next to Luka Doncic. Imagine it. Luka is maybe the biggest defense magnet in the whole league. When he attacks, the entire defense collapses on him. 2, sometimes 3 guys. And what opens up? The corner opens up. The three-point line opens up. And on the other side, waiting at 6'10", shooting over any defender because he's simply too tall to be contested. Michael Porter Jr., Luka's gravity, plus MPJ's aim. That's not a fit. That's a lock and a key. It's the kind of duo that makes the opposing defense choose between drowning and burning. But I promised I'd be honest with you, so let's get to the buts. Because if it were easy, it would have happened already, right? And the obstacles here are real. First, the money. MPJ will make more than $40 million next season in the final year of the big contract he signed back in Denver. To bring him in, the Lakers have to send back roughly the same amount in salary. And this is where it gets surgical. They'd have to package contracts. Think of a Jard Vanderbilt who gives you defense and versatility on the wings. Think of a young guy like Dalton Knecht who has shooting upside. Throw in another movable contract to make the math work. And most painful of all, put a first-round pick on the table. Because Brooklyn isn't giving up their best player for free. They'll want future assets. They always do. And here comes the second layer, the layer that separates the people who understand basketball from the people who just repeat what they heard. Brooklyn right now is in a delicious dilemma to watch from the outside. They don't control their own first-round pick next year. The swap rights belong to another team. Translation for Brooklyn, tanking on purpose to sink in the standings brings zero reward in the draft. So on one side, there are people in the front office who want to hold MPJ and try to compete. But on the other side, and this is where the buzz is born, there's the cold logic of the numbers. MPJ is in the final year of his deal. If Brooklyn isn't going to extend him for an absurd figure, the moment to get maximum assets for him is now, this summer, while he's coming off an all-star caliber season. Holding to trade him only at next season's deadline almost always returns less. Everyone in the market knows this, and it's that tension, hold or sell high, that keeps the door cracked open. Now, let me tell you why this year specifically is the year the stars align for Los Angeles. The Lakers are coming off a frustrating season. They beat Houston in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs, a hard-fought 4-2, and then ran straight into the Oklahoma City Thunder in the semifinals. And it was ugly. It was a sweep, 4-0. The reigning champion of the league ran over the Lakers like a truck, and if there's one thing a sweep does to a front office with the ambition of Los Angeles, it's set off an alarm. The message was clear. The team thrown together in a hurry with holes on the wings doesn't come close to beating the monsters of the West. And Luka Doncic in his mid-20s, entering the absolute prime of his career, has no patience for a slow rebuild. He wants to compete now. He told the front office to go get the center, and the front office did. The next logical question, the one echoing through the franchise's hallways is, and the second killer, where's the third man who turns this team from nice into scary? And this is why I want you to pay very close attention for the next few seconds, because this is where the piece that locks everything appears. I told you back at the start I'd show you the detail almost nobody is looking at. Here it is, JJ Redick, the head coach. Think about the system Redick wants to run, a system of spacing, of reads, of ball movement, built around an offensive genius who sees the floor 3 seconds before everyone else. What kind of piece does a system like that beg for? A perimeter finisher who doesn't need plays run for him. A guy you plant in the corner who occupies 2 defenders with just the threat of the shot and who, when the ball arrives, doesn't miss. That's Michael Porter Jr. in the dictionary definition. Redick wouldn't have to reinvent anything. He'd just slot the piece into the hole that already exists. And teams that see this kind of surgical fit, where the player isn't just talented, but talented in that specific system, are the teams that make the trades that win championships. It's not about stacking names. It's about stacking the right pieces. And the Lakers, for the first time in years, have a coherent roster where one piece in the right place changes the entire ceiling of the team. So let me paint the full picture for you, the way it would exist in real life. A Lakers team with Luka Doncic running everything. Austin Reeves as the second creator, that guy who plays on and off the ball, who hits the shot and attacks the closeout. Walker Kessler protecting the rim and finishing Luka's lobs. A Colin Sexton bringing points and speed off the bench. And, on the wing, open in the corner, at 6'10" of pure poison, Michael Porter Jr. Can you see that team losing 4-0 to anybody? I can't, and that's exactly the nightmare keeping the other front offices in the West up at night. But, and there's always a but, right? I wouldn't be honest with you if I didn't put the other side of the coin on the table, because real investigation means looking at both sides. MPJ has a history of back injuries that haunts his career. He's a player who, in his own words, has said he takes it season by season, that he doesn't know how much longer his body will hold up. For a team like the Lakers, who'd be giving up future assets and a first-round pick, that's a real risk. You're betting big on a guy whose body has already played tricks on him. And there's more. MPJ dropped some controversial takes last offseason on podcasts that stirred the pot and that some franchises see as a PR headache. So it's not a zero-risk decision. It's a bet, a catch lightning in a bottle and pray it stays lit for the next 2 years bet. And so I turn the question back to you, Lakers fan. Would you make that bet? Would you send away young pieces and a first-round pick for 2 years of one of the best big man shooters in the entire league next to Luka Doncic, knowing the back risk, knowing it's the final year of his deal and you'd have to negotiate a giant extension afterward? Or would you hold your assets, bet on internal growth, and wait for the next big opportunity? Because that's exactly the conversation that, according to what's circulating in the back rooms, happens behind closed doors in this kind of franchise. It's not a ready-made headline. It's a calculation. It's a front office weighing risk against reward in a closed room while the offseason runs. And the beauty and the terror of it is that a trade like this doesn't give warning. It doesn't come with a suspense soundtrack. It drops out of nowhere on some random Tuesday in an alert on your phone, and suddenly the entire landscape of the West has changed. You wake up and Luka's Lakers have a new killer on the wing. Now, before you leave here, I want to leave one last thing burned into your head. Notice the timing. MPJ's contract expires after next season. Brooklyn is in that hold or sell dilemma. The Lakers have a hole on the wing, a coach whose system asks for exactly this type of player, a Luka hungry to compete now and no money to sign, only to trade. All the ingredients are on the table, all of them. The only thing missing is someone to strike the match. And in the NBA, when all the ingredients of a trade line up like this, it rarely stays in the realm of imagination for long. So that's what I wanted you to take away from this video, not a fake headline. A read on the backstage, a scenario that's too real to ignore. And I really want to know your opinion. Comment down below. Luka and Michael Porter Jr. on the same floor. Is that a championship or a trap? I read every comment, and in the next video, I'll come back with the scenario nobody's expecting for another giant of the league. If you made it this far, drop the like, subscribe, because when this bomb actually goes off, and I'm almost certain a version of it will go off this offseason, you'll want to be here so we can react together, live firsthand. See you in the next one. I'm out.